Hello everyone, welcome back to Altengrad City in City Skylines. This is what we built last time, the exhibition center on the edge of the city. It had a nice plaza in front of it with a tram stop, important road intersection and some low density areas all around it. Let's take a look at the whole city so you have a better idea where we currently are. Today we are going to build on the small piece of land between the two rivers. Right on the tip, we built a detailed plaza some time ago, and here on the right, that's the exhibition center. Today, we are going to fill this empty space with mostly blocks of buildings, high and low density, and we are also going to build a water tower and detail the entrance to the bridge on the right. So, let's go. But before we are going to jump into that project, I promised you that I'm going to cover building this little thing. So this is the strip of land between the entrance to the exhibition center and the weir that we built some time ago, a couple of episodes back. Now, I already mentioned that I really wanted to build some sort of a small dock area, like a little marina for very small boats, and that's exactly what I eventually did here. I didn't really want to put some kind of large or fancy looking waterfront, like walls, stone walls and quays or something like that, because I really wanted to make this place feel like we are on the edge of the city. So it's kind of going to be a bit more rough looking, let's say. But this marina just, fits perfectly into that kind of style. So we had some, technically how I did this place. So we had some elevation difference, quite a large one. So I needed to provide some entrance roads, kind of like a twisting dirt roads. These are kind of perfect, even though they have some glitches. You can see that over here with that intersection, for example, the grass is kind of sticking through in some areas. That's usually what happens with some of these roads when you really force them to cover like great elevation, exactly like in this place. But it doesn't really matter, it's a dirt road after all. It doesn't really need to look all that great, and it's going to be filled all around the roads with some bushes and trees and stuff, so that's going to be perfectly fine. I didn't really do this place all that over detailed, I suppose. I only used a handful of stuff, mostly some of these small little boats. There is also that boat on the land there. I'm not really sure what it's called, kind of being repaired or something. And just using all these kinds of other details that I already used in some other areas. So especially these decals for dirt and some kind of mud. And this little place has just like short rails there, so that maybe that's the place where the boats are lowered into the water. Like I said, it's not really super detailed, this area. I really just wanted to fill this place with something and, kind of do it quickly so that we can just continue building something else. These little boats, like motorboats, I suppose, that I'm placing there, those are very nice because they actually stick on the surface of the water, so that's very good, very convenient. Every time you download some kind of these water details, props from the workshop, when they stick to the water, because you could have seen that I also provided another source of the water in the river, right below the weir, so I can have a better control over the height of the water. Now, obviously, well, it's not really obvious, but if you are going to place two sources of water, and one of them, they are connected kind of by a river or something, and one of them is going to be lower, then it's not going to act as a source, but it's actually going to act as a drain, right? So the higher source is going to provide the actual volume of water, and the lower source is kind of going to be serving as a control, like a water level control. So it's going to drain all the excess water, and it's only going to keep that level in check. So that's perfectly fine for what I really wanted this place to be. So I think I'm even going to do that a bit more throughout the city, because I really wasn't paying that much attention to all of this, and actually I didn't know that the sources even work this way. So every time I wanted to control the water level in the city, I just raised or lowered the water source right at the start of the river on the edge of the map, and then I kind of waited for forever, for like a couple of days, even like real days, so that the water level is just going to completely stabilize, and it's going to work perfectly fine with the harbor, with all the bridges and all kinds of piers throughout the city, waterfronts and stuff. But I really need to revisit the rivers, and I need to just provide all these little drains here and there, probably on the confluence of rivers. That would make sense. and maybe around these kinds of marinas or docks, like I said. So, for example, in the opening shot in today's video, you could have seen that this river, this one, is, for example, flowing backwards because of this very reason that I was just not really paying attention to the sources, and eventually you might have these kinds of things. But this other river, I'm actually going to change it a bit, how it goes through the map, because I don't really like the layout for the future expansion of the city. It doesn't really make much sense in regards to the future city expansion. But that's kind of for the future plans. I'm not really going to go into more detail now. Anyway, I have finished that marina place. It was very, very simple thing to do, really. I just completed it with lots of decals of mud, dirt, and lots of trees, especially the willow trees, and, it just looks very good. I was kind of paying attention a lot to the first-person view from the trams that are going on that road just above the marina. And I was trying to not really build that tall trees, so you can see from the first-person view, the castle, for example, in the distance and stuff like that. So hopefully that's going to look very nice when we are finally going to do that. But now for the main topic of today's video, and that's going to be this new expansion of the city and filling that place that I showed you in the beginning. So we had this tip right on the confluence of the rivers, and we built that plaza in there. It's the place where both of the old bridges are connecting. We have those trams going through there, and some of these high density, like old looking blocks. I really was trying to put some, even the Renaissance buildings in there, so that might be part of some like really old part of the city. But it's just a couple of blocks with those really old buildings, and eventually when we come closer to the exhibition center, I'm going to build some more modern structures, roughly the same age as the exhibition center itself. Even though I'm thinking that the exhibition center was probably one of the oldest structures in this part of the city, because it probably was built on a completely empty ground, and eventually it just got kind of incorporated into the suburbs of the city. You might even think of them as that, and obviously the garden city was built there as well, and all those kinds of little low density areas. Now I'm going to build that water tower. So I had a couple of water towers from the workshop. I don't think I built a single water tower in the city yet, so this is going to be the first time. And I decided I really want to build something slightly more modern looking. So I eventually used that Art Deco building, this one. This is actually a water tower. It's not just like a random tower. And I decided to pair it with some sort of a modern structure. At first I really wanted to use that very modern looking, kind of wild looking for this time period building for the same style pretty much. But I eventually decided to use that market hall that I downloaded very, very recently. I think it's like an American building. I'm not exactly sure. I think it is. But the style is kind of similar, but we can always think that maybe the tower itself was like refurbished or built new or something, and there was some kind of a former structure in that place, and they just really wanted to, I don't know, increase the pumping capacity or the tower or something like that. You could have also seen me try like a ruler, and I was just trying the elevation, like if I'm going to place a water tower in here, is it going to be possible to think of the water tower as a major water supply for this entire area on this side of the river, elevation wise, because obviously the water tower needs to be the highest point in this entire area, otherwise the water wouldn't really flow there. But it's fine, it's absolutely fine. I thought that the terrain elevation is a bit harsher, but apparently not. This place is actually pretty flat, even though there are some small differences. But the water tower is definitely safely the highest structure in this entire area by far. So anyway, the market building that I decided to couple the tower with also had like a tower, but it was kind of like a clock tower or something like that. Didn't really look like for water. And the actual water tower I just placed on top of that part of the structure, and it fits perfectly. I played a bit with the repainter or the painter, I'm not sure what these days the mod is called, to kind of mix the shades of the buildings or blend them together, and eventually it worked. The overall plan for this the overall plan for this area, the main idea here was that I'm just going to fill this entire place with buildings, but eventually I wanted to create something more interesting. Otherwise, this would just be some kind of mindless city expansion, which it kind of is anyway around this area with the low density, but at least it's something that that is a bit new in the city. I'm definitely going to build more water towers. Obviously, I didn't really want to build them yet in the center of the city, for example, because I don't know, maybe the very old areas of the city have like wells or something as a water supply. In this time period, we obviously have, at least in the new structures, we already have the pipes running through the modern blocks and all the low density buildings as well. Well, probably not all, but a lot of them. So I am going to build more water towers in the future, but more as we go further away from the city, and especially to the higher placed areas. It doesn't really make sense to build a tall water tower like right next on the waterfront, even though this one kind of is. But like I said, it is the highest place in this part of the city. But for example, when we go to the parliament side of the city, then there's quite a big terrain elevation. So when we are going to expand the city up the hills, then that's where the water towers are definitely going to happen. By the way, I also have a plan for some kind of a water treatment facility, or not really water treatment, but like I'm not really sure what that's called in English. You know, the buildings that you get the water from, or you kind of treat the water first before putting it into the system. Not really the wastewater treatment facility. That's probably going to happen too in Altengrad, but I do have one specific plan for that initial treatment facility. I'm not really sure what it's called. It's kind of going to be an interesting take because I wanted to kind of recreate a real life building that uses a fairly interesting principle for creating the fresh water into the drinking water that gets put into the water network. But anyway, that's kind of like a very, very future distant plan. I'm not really sure when that's going to happen. I haven't really picked any place outside the city for it yet. So, that's just like me talking about some very, very future plans. Now, the rest of this area, when we finally go back to what I'm building here, is going to be mostly low density. I really wanted to only do the low density areas around the exhibition center because I really want to kind of force the idea that this is the edge of the city and it's not really go past here, at least not that much. Like I mentioned in the last episode, I am going to build a couple of like villages or little settlements, maybe just a couple of buildings really on intersections outside of the city or something like that. That's kind of going to be very important when we are going to go with the future of Altengrad. Then that's just going to be very interesting to see how that is going to get incorporated into the city or maybe completely destroyed to make way for some new, structures or stuff. So that's something that I will have to do. But I kind of made a decision, not exactly a very easy decision, but necessary one, that I'm not really going to do all the suburbs as they probably should be if I wanted to really pass the city as something really realistic. But at the end of the day, I would probably just go crazy from expanding the city with the low density residential areas all around it because it's just not that super interesting. All the blocks are kind of looking very, very similar. I know that, I can already hear or see the comments saying that I should probably just use the vanilla zoning or something like that, just fiddle with maybe, what's that even called? The district themes or whatever. But honestly, I would rather not have the suburbs at all rather than just have them terrible looking, And if they are going to be zoned automatically, then they are just going to be terrible. Like, let's face it, they are just not going to look good at all. I'm not saying that I'm making like super nicely detailed residential areas in here. They are kind of really fast built, and I'm not really trying to make them detailed that much because I don't really even want to burn the prop limits too much. But it's definitely like miles better than what we would have if some of these blocks were just automatically built because of zoning, right? So yeah, that's going to be my explanation. Sorry, I guess, because the city is just not really going to have all those huge low density suburbs all around it. But at the end of the day, those are not really the most important aspects of these kinds of projects anyway, because I can guess that a lot of people are just watching this series for the projects like the train stations or train infrastructure in general, or some of those more interesting stuff like the weir that we did, the power station. So, all of these things are, yeah, sure, if they are going to be in place, they would kind of add to the realism. But at the end of the day, that's not really the main focus of the series anyway. All right. So that kind of leads me to the plan for the next episode, which is probably going to be a return to the parliament side of the city, because I would really like to finally build that third train station. Well, it's not really like a third, but it's going to be a third main train station or important station, because we have a couple of more smaller stations throughout the city already, but this one is going to be like a third important station. All right, it's going to be closer to the parliament. It's going to be a terminus station again. It's not going to be like a go through building, and hopefully it's going to fill the area nicely, and it's going to provide some opportunities to create some plazas in front of it, or just some fancy blocks, fancy buildings all around it. And obviously it's just going to provide more trains into the city, which the city definitely needs. Why not have more trains? More trains is always better, right? So that's going to happen in the next episode. And I'm also thinking that going into the future of this series, going with the following episodes, I'm probably just going to build a couple of those farmlands, or even some low density, like I said, those intersection areas and stuff. I'm probably just going to build it together with some more interesting project in the center of the city. So maybe, I don't know, at the end of each episode, I'm just going to build like a couple of low density blocks around the city, just so that I'm not really going to focus on the low density areas as the main focus of the episode, but I'm just going to build something in the center. And then on the side, I'm just going to keep adding, like I said, the farmlands or some of the suburbs and stuff. And eventually we are just going to see the city grow while we are going to be doing the center. So, that's kind of like a compromise solution that I think might work. Anyway, this is what we built today, and as you can see, the exhibition center is not really like filled like all around. The places all around it are just not filled, but that's kind of intentional, because I was already having so many plans in regards to like future expansion of a lot of these places, even changes to the infrastructure, like road layout and stuff. So I don't really want to build the low density areas absolutely everywhere in here. I am probably going to demolish a couple of them going into the future anyway, but hopefully that's just going to be, fine. It's just going to add something interesting. Anyway, this is a cinematic that I actually recorded for the previous episode, but this one is just showing the marina that we did at the start today. And yeah, I really like it. I really like how it blends together with the low density stuff and the road on the top there. And yeah, you can see that there's like a cutout in that tree line right in here on that intersection, because that's exactly where the first person from the trams are going to just overlook the castle area in the distance and the rest of the city. So hopefully that's going to just look much nicer. As you can see, the entire marina is like very minimalistic, but eventually it turned out looking great. Kind of like I said, blending in with the rest of these places. So today's expansion was kind of more about the quantity, but at the same time we built the water tower, which is really nice. How it's just creating another landmark in this place, which this place definitely needed. I know that I probably should build a couple more churches in some of these areas. It's definitely going to happen, like on the parliament side of the building, because that's like the final opportunity of the city where we are going to be able to build some like really big buildings. So I do have a couple of cathedral, like larger churches and stuff to still use. So that's going to happen definitely. And even in some of those remote areas here and there, I am going to place a couple of smaller churches. But this place kind of felt like it needed something more modern, I suppose. And the water tower building is like very modern. By the way, I didn't really mention what the building, the market hall building beneath the tower actually is. Like in real life, you obviously need to bring the water into the water tower, so that it requires some kind of infrastructure, like some kind of pumping station, steam probably, electric maybe as well in this time period already. I'm not really sure, but it requires some kind of substantial infrastructure, so I decided to just use that and not just the building itself, because that would just not be all that super interesting. This just combines at least something more. This bridge is also planned to be kind of switched as we progress in time with the series. You could have already seen with the previous episode where I kind of accidentally built it with tram tracks, and then I kind of remembered that no, wait a second, that's a plan for the future, not yet. All right, so you could have already seen how that's going to change. Anyway, guys, that's going to be all for today. Like I said, next episode is going to be another train station in the city, another big fancy train station in the city, and together with it, I'm probably going to even revisit some of these suburb areas, going to maybe do a couple of more of these low density blocks, and I'm definitely going to show you just all these results. I'm probably going to continue using those shots of the overall city at the start of the episode, so you kind of have a better idea where we are, what we have done in the previous episode, how it ties to the rest of the city, and what we are going to do in that particular episode. All right, so it's just going to be much better to kind of get into the series, for example, or just remind yourself where we are and what we are going to be doing with the rest of the city. All right, so that's going to be all. Already talking a bit too much here, so I'm going to see you with the next two episodes from Aurelia. So guys, thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, then you can put a thumbs up underneath it. You can subscribe to the channel, write some comments, and all those other things, like becoming channel members, for example, if you want. But anyway, thank you guys for watching again. Take care and goodbye.